In the next 3 minutes, you'll learn how to win any argument without saying a single word. Most people think power comes from having the best comeback or the loudest voice. But silence, when used the right way, is more dangerous than any words you could say. Have you ever walked away from a conversation replaying every sentence in your mind, wondering why you still felt small no matter how hard you tried to explain yourself? Maybe you believed that staying silent meant you were weak. Maybe you thought not defending yourself was the same as losing. But what if that was never true? What if silence is not emptiness, but a force so undeniable it can shake anyone's confidence? Nietzsche, one of the most misunderstood philosophers in history, said that silence isn't the absence of power, it's the proof. You don't need to prove anything. Today, you're going to discover how to turn silence into a strategy. Not to avoid the fight, but to end it before it even begins. Stay with me, because by the time you finish this video, you'll never look at silence the same way again. If you're ready, let's dive in. 1. The illusion of needing to speak. Have you ever noticed how quickly you feel the urge to defend yourself when someone challenges you? It happens almost without thinking. A colleague questions your idea in a meeting, and before you even process what they said, you're already planning your comeback. Or maybe someone makes a sarcastic comment about your choices, and you feel that tightness in your chest, the need to explain yourself, to prove you're not who they think you are. You are not alone in this. Every day, millions of people feel trapped in the same reflex. We've been taught that the truth must be defended at all costs, that silence is the same as surrender, that if you don't respond, you're admitting defeat. But here's what most people never realize. The moment you feel compelled to justify yourself, you've already lost control of the situation, because that impulse doesn't come from strength, it comes from fear. Let's pause for a second and be honest. How many arguments have you walked into thinking you were defending your truth when really you're just protecting your ego? If you're like most of us, the answer is almost all of them. Nietzsche, the German philosopher who spent his life studying human nature, believed that most people argue not because their beliefs are strong, but because if those beliefs were questioned, everything inside them would start to collapse. They argue because defending feels safer than examining. Imagine you're in a heated discussion. The other person throws out accusation after accusation. You feel your pulse racing. You start listing reasons why you're right. You try to sound calm, but inside you're desperate to be seen as good, smart, worthy. That desperation is exactly what Nietzsche warned about. It's a cry for validation disguised as conviction. Here's what you need to understand. When you jump into defending yourself, you are playing their game. And their game is designed to keep you reactive and off balance. Because when you react, you reveal. You show them exactly which words pierce your armor. You expose what you fear most. The possibility you might be wrong, or worse, that you might be rejected. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you learn to pause. You learn to recognize that not every comment deserves a response. You learn to tell the difference between real dialogue and an ego trap. Here's a simple step you can try today. The next time someone criticizes you, wait. Count to 5 in your head before you say anything. Notice what comes up inside you in that silence. It will feel uncomfortable. That's normal. It's the space where your old reflexes start to lose their grip. Remember this, your need to respond is not proof you are right. It's proof you are afraid of not being understood. But what if being misunderstood is not the end of the world? What if letting go of that need is the beginning of real freedom? Stay with me, because in the next part we'll uncover why most people can't stand to see you silent, and how the collective need for approval keeps them small while you grow stronger. 2. Herd morality and the weakness of approval. Have you ever noticed how some people measure their worth by the number of nods they get in a room? You see it in meetings, on social media, even at family dinners. Someone starts sharing an opinion, but halfway through they adjust their words just to fit in. They look around, searching for approval, like a performer waiting for applause. I remember reading a story about a woman who believed she was strong because she always had support. Every time she shared her ideas, her friends reassured her she was right. Every time she doubted herself, someone was there to validate her. She thought that meant she was confident. But one day she spoke up about something unpopular, and the silence that followed was louder than any argument. For the first time, she realized her strength wasn't real. It was rented. This is what Nietzsche called herd morality, the silent agreement that we should all stay small, all think the same, all pretend that comfort means truth. The herd doesn't care about what's real. It only cares about what's familiar. When you measure yourself by other people's reactions, you give your power away without even realizing it. You start living for approval instead of living from conviction. And in that moment, you become easy to control. Think about it honestly. How many times have you watered down your own ideas just to avoid that look of disapproval? How often have you said what was expected not because you believed it, but because you couldn't stand the idea of being misunderstood? Every time you adjust yourself to please the crowd, you teach yourself that your truth isn't enough, that you need permission to be real. But it doesn't have to stay that way. True strength isn't built on being liked. It's built on the quiet, often lonely decision to keep your vision clear, even when no one claps for it. Imagine what would change if you stopped worrying whether people approved. Imagine how much energy you'd save if you stopped trying to manage everyone's opinions. This doesn't mean you have to be rude or dismissive. It means you become anchored. You start showing up with the calm certainty that you don't need to be understood to be worthy. Try this. The next time you feel the urge to soften your words to avoid judgment, pause, take a slow breath and remind yourself, approval is sweet, but it's not the same as respect. Then say what you mean clearly, calmly, without apologizing for it. When you do this, something shifts. People feel it. They may not like it, but they sense you're no longer playing by their rules. And that discomfort is proof you're finally becoming free. Most people will never get to this point. They'll keep trading their voice for acceptance. They'll keep waiting for the nods that make them feel safe. But not you. You're here because something inside you knows there's a different way to live. A way where you don't have to explain, justify, or shrink. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to explore how the observing mind becomes your greatest advantage, and why mastering this skill makes you impossible to shake, even when the world tries to pull you back into the herd. If this video is helping you see things differently, please share it with someone you care about. It could be a small gift that makes their day a little lighter. 3. The observing mind as true power. Have you ever wondered why some people can walk into a room without saying a word and still shift the entire atmosphere? You feel their presence before they speak. You watch others adjust their posture, lower their voices, become more careful with their words. That's not an accident. It's the effect of the observing mind, the part of you that no longer needs to react, explain, or prove anything. Most people live in a reactive state. They are like open wounds, constantly scanning for any touch that might hurt. The moment someone disagrees, they flare up. The moment they feel misunderstood, they rush to correct it. This is exactly what keeps them weak. Nietzsche understood that a reactive mind is not free. It is a slave to every opinion, every judgment, every passing mood of the crowd. He believed that true power begins the moment you step out of this reflex, when you stop being a puppet pulled by invisible strings and start becoming the one who watches, calmly, without needing to jump into every conflict. Think back to the last argument you had. Maybe it was with a colleague, a friend, or someone you love. Remember how your heart sped up, how your mind scrambled to come up with the perfect response. You were so busy reacting that you never paused to ask yourself a simple question: do I actually need to say anything at all? The observing mind is the part of you that can sit in that pause. It can feel the urge to react and still choose stillness. That stillness is not weakness, it is discipline. It is the foundation of real authority. Imagine someone tries to provoke you with an insult. Most people will take the bait. They'll get defensive or lash back. But the observing mind doesn't flinch. It sees the provocation for what it is, a small test to see if you can be controlled. When you don't react, you send a message more powerful than any words. You show that you are not here to compete in petty battles. You are anchored in something deeper, and that is what makes people uneasy, even afraid, because your calm forces them to feel their own noise. Your silence becomes a mirror for their insecurity. Now, if you want to practice this, try this simple exercise. The next time you feel that pull to jump in and defend yourself, pause. Let the moment stretch longer than feels comfortable. Notice the thoughts racing through your mind. Notice the fear that says if you don't respond, you'll look weak. Then ask yourself, who gave me that idea? Who decided that my worth depends on winning this argument? Most likely, it wasn't you. It was the conditioning of a world that rewards loudness over clarity. You don't have to play that game anymore. You can choose to observe instead of react. You can let your silence carry more weight than other people's shouting. Over time, you'll find that people start treating you differently. They'll think twice before trying to pull you into their drama. They'll respect the space you create by not filling every silence with noise, and they'll start to realize that you are someone they cannot easily read or manipulate. Remember this: a reactive mind reveals everything, an observing mind reveals nothing. And that mystery is part of your power. Because when people can't figure you out, they lose the advantage. They start second-guessing themselves. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you're capable of. That uncertainty is like a hidden force that bends the situation in your favor. Most people will never know this kind of strength because it requires giving up the constant need for approval. It requires letting go of the fantasy that you must be understood to be respected. But the moment you embrace that, you step into a different kind of life. A life where your presence speaks louder than your voice ever could. Stay here, because in the next part we're going to explore how this idea becomes reality through the figure of the Übermensch, and why this kind of self-mastery is the ultimate expression of unshakable power. 4. The Übermensch and the power of silence. Have you ever wondered why some people can sit quietly in a room and still feel more powerful than those who won't stop talking? That is not an accident. It is the presence of someone who no longer needs to react to prove their worth. Nietzsche called this rare type of human the Übermensch, the overman. He is not driven by applause or the fear of rejection. He does not care if people understand him or agree. He creates his own rules and lives by them, even if no one else follows. This is why the Übermensch doesn't rush to fill the silence. He knows that silence itself can become a force. When everyone else is fighting for attention, trying to out-talk and outshine each other, he simply observes. He listens not to respond, but to understand. And that calm attention makes people uneasy, because it leaves them alone with their own thoughts. It makes them question whether their words have any substance at all. Imagine sitting across from someone who doesn't flinch when you criticize them, who doesn't jump in to defend every detail of their position, who looks at you with quiet, steady eyes and lets you run out of arguments. You start to feel a strange discomfort. You wonder what they're thinking. You wonder if they see through you. That is the power of silence. It does not attack, but it exposes. In a world addicted to noise, the person who can remain still becomes the one everyone notices. While others shout, He commands respect with a single look. While others scramble to explain themselves, he lets their confusion do the work for him. His silence is not an absence, it is a statement. I am not here to prove anything. I am here because I know who I am. This is the difference between reactive power and true authority. Reactive power feels loud and urgent. It tries to convince, to win, to dominate by force. True authority is quiet. It has nothing to prove because it has already decided its own value. This is why the Übermensch is so dangerous to those who depend on approval. He can't be manipulated by guilt or fear. He doesn't need anyone to confirm that he is enough. You can practice this even if it feels uncomfortable at first. The next time you're tempted to jump in and justify yourself, pause. Let the silence stretch longer than feels safe. Watch how the other person reacts when you don't rush to fill the gap. Pay attention to what you feel in that moment. Maybe it's fear of being misunderstood. Maybe it's the urge to be liked. Just notice it. You don't have to obey it. When you do speak, speak slowly. Say only what you mean. Every word should feel deliberate, like placing a stone exactly where it belongs. And when you are finished, return to silence. Let it do the rest of the work for you. Remember this: every unnecessary word is a revealed move. Every emotional reaction shows a weak spot. The Übermensch knows this. He stays silent, not because he is empty, but because he does not need to fill the space with anything. His presence already speaks. His calm already commands. Think of the people you respect most. Chances are, it's not the ones who talk the loudest. It's the ones who never seem rattled. The ones whose opinions don't shift with the crowd. The ones who can sit in stillness and make you wonder what they see. In a society that worships constant stimulation, learning to value silence makes you almost untouchable. It takes practice to get there. It takes courage to let go of the need to be validated. But when you do, something changes. The power dynamic reverses. You are no longer reacting to other people's noise. They are reacting to your stillness. Stay with me, because in the next part we'll explore why silence is not only a tool for self-mastery, but also a way to unsettle anyone who tries to manipulate you, and how to use it with intention without ever having to raise your voice. 5. The psychological impact of silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Think about that. No speeches, no clever comebacks, no effort to prove yourself, just stillness. For most people, this is unthinkable, because silence feels like surrender. But the truth is, silence is often the most unsettling response you can give. Picture a moment when someone attacked your ideas or questioned your worth. Maybe it was at work, in a meeting where you felt cornered. Maybe it was in a relationship when you were blamed for something you didn't do. Your heart started to race. You felt the pressure to defend yourself, to fill the space with arguments. But what would have happened if you simply stayed quiet? This is where psychology comes in. Studies have shown that in a heated discussion, silence isn't perceived as passivity, it's experienced as judgment. The human brain hates an empty space. When you don't react, you force the other person to hear their own words echo back at them. They start to question themselves. Did I go too far? Do I sound foolish? Am I wrong? That's why silence feels like an invisible blade. It doesn't attack with noise, it cuts with absence. And most people can't bear it. Because they don't speak to express the truth, they speak to hide from it. They use words to cover the cracks between their image and their reality. But your silence removes that cover. A manager once shared that he used this principle in high-pressure negotiations. Whenever someone tried to dominate the conversation, he would lean back and say nothing. He watched as the other side started to squirm, filling the silence with concessions, excuses, or contradictions. He called it letting them drown in their own noise. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. When you stop reacting, you stop playing by other people's rules, you stop feeding the illusion that their approval defines you, and you start to see how many people are just performing, hoping you'll clap for their act. This isn't easy. Your instincts will scream at you to jump in, to defend yourself, to prove you're worthy. That urgency is just fear disguised as logic. If you pause, if you breathe, you'll notice the fear has no substance. It's just old conditioning, trying to keep you small. Try this next time you feel attacked or criticized. Let the silence stretch longer than feels safe. Watch the other person's face. Notice how quickly they start to fidget, how their voice changes as they scramble to fill the void. That moment is when you reclaim control, not by overpowering them, but by refusing to be pulled into their drama. Silence also exposes the manipulators. The people who thrive on getting a rise out of you need your reactions to stay in control. They depend on you to get defensive, to over-explain, to apologize for things you didn't do. When you stay quiet, you break that cycle. You make them reveal their insecurity without lifting a finger. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you choose when. You choose how. You understand that every word has weight, so you don't spend them carelessly. Your quiet presence says, I don't need to prove anything. I'm not here to play this game. Even deeper, silence brings people face to face with the parts of themselves they don't want to see. When you don't react, they have to sit in the discomfort of realizing their words alone don't control you. For the narcissistic ego, that's unbearable, because it forces them to feel small without you even saying a word. This is why silence is not weakness, it's precision. It's a refusal to be baited. It's a commitment to your own inner authority. And the more you practice it, the more you'll notice people respecting you, not because you demanded it, but because your calm shows them you don't need their validation. Pause here and really feel that. You don't need to explain, you don't need to react, you don't need to prove. Your presence alone can speak louder than any argument. Stay with me, because in the next part, I'll show you exactly how to use this silence as a strategy, not just to protect your energy, but to turn every conversation into an opportunity to lead without saying a word. If this video resonates with you, or if you see something that could be clearer or more helpful, please leave a comment and share your thoughts. Let me know what spoke to you and what I could improve. Your feedback helps me make better content for you and everyone else watching. 6. The strength required for silence. Most people think silence is easy. They imagine it as doing nothing, sitting back while life happens around you. But anyone who has ever tried to stay silent in a tense moment knows the truth. Silence isn't comfortable. It isn't passive. It is an act of discipline that will test every part of you. Imagine a time when someone accused you of something unfair. Maybe they raised their voice, trying to push you into defending yourself. Inside, you felt a storm. Your heart beat faster. Your mind scrambled for words to protect your reputation. That pressure to speak wasn't logic, it was fear. Fear of looking weak, fear of losing control, fear of being misunderstood. This is why silence requires strength, because it asks you to resist the oldest impulse you have, the need to react. We've all been taught that speaking up is proof of competence, that defending yourself is the only way to avoid being walked over. But what if that's just another lie society feeds you to keep you predictable? There's a story of a woman who spent years in a corporate job where meetings were dominated by loud voices. Every time she tried to share an idea, she was interrupted. She felt invisible. One day she decided to try something different. When someone cut her off, she stopped talking altogether. She sat back and watched. At first, the room grew awkward. People avoided eye contact. The person who interrupted her started to stumble over their own words. Her silence had weight. It was uncomfortable, but it also forced everyone to see what had been invisible, their lack of respect. That moment changed her forever. She realized that speaking less could sometimes accomplish more, but she also admitted that staying silent took more courage than all the arguing she'd ever done. Because here's what silence really demands. It demands you trust yourself. It demands you believe your value doesn't shrink just because you don't announce it. It demands you can stand in a room full of noise and know that your calm is not a weakness. It's proof you can't be shaken. If you're ready to practice this, start small. The next time someone criticizes you unfairly, notice the heat rising in your chest. Notice the instinct to explain or prove. And then, pause. Count to 5 before you say anything. Feel the discomfort. Let it teach you something. Let it show you that you don't have to rush to fill the silence. Over time, you'll see that your restraint is what makes you powerful. Because when you stay calm, you're not giving them ammunition. You're not playing the part they've scripted for you. You're showing that their approval or their anger has no control over you. But this doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak on your terms, not because you were provoked. You share your perspective when it serves a purpose, not when you're desperate to be understood. And here's the truth most people will never tell you. Mastery is not about always feeling confident. Mastery is about acting from your values, even when your body is screaming with doubt. It's about choosing presence over performance. It's about recognizing that silence doesn't mean you're hiding. It means you're choosing. So many people are stuck in a cycle of reactive living. They talk just to fill the air. They explain because they think they have to. They react because they don't trust themselves to hold the tension of an unspoken truth. But if you can break that cycle, even for a moment, you will feel something shift inside you. You will feel the power of knowing you are no longer a puppet to every passing feeling. This is what makes silence so powerful and so rare. It is the expression of a mind that doesn't need an audience to feel complete. It is the sign that you are not here to impress anyone. You are here to live in alignment with what matters to you. Let's pause and look back at everything you've uncovered. You've seen how silence is not weakness, but a force that can unmask manipulation, expose insecurity, and reclaim your power. You've learned that most people are not brave enough to sit in that silence because it feels too raw, too honest. And you've realized that every time you've stayed quiet out of fear, you handed your authority to someone who never deserved it. But now you see the difference. There is a silence that breaks you, and a silence that builds you. The first is born from guilt, from the need to be liked, from the desperation to keep the peace, even when your spirit is screaming. The second is born from knowing who you are, and no longer needing the world's approval to confirm it. This is the moment when your old patterns start to crack. The moment when the excuses you've told yourself begin to feel too small for the person you are becoming. Because once you understand that your presence alone can command respect, you will never again feel compelled to justify yourself to people who thrive on your discomfort. Imagine a version of yourself who doesn't flinch when challenged, who doesn't rush to fill the silence just to feel accepted, who can sit in any room, any confrontation, any moment, and remain completely composed. This is not arrogance, it's not coldness, it is the highest form of self-respect, and that is what this journey has been about, becoming someone who is no longer defined by other people's expectations, someone who can look at manipulation, guilt, and noise and simply not react. Because the ultimate power is not to win every argument. The ultimate power is to be so centered that you don't need the argument at all. If you take one truth with you today, let it be this: silence is not absence. It is presence in its purest form. It is a declaration without words that you will not be moved, that you will not be shaped by forces smaller than your own purpose. So I'm inviting you now, make this a turning point. Let this be the day your silence stops being an escape and starts being a statement. A statement that says, I know who I am and I no longer need to prove it. If this message resonated with you, if something inside you is ready to rise, leave a comment below that simply says, I choose the silence that commands respect, not for me, but for yourself. Because putting it in writing is how you plant a flag, how you declare to your old habits that their time is over. And please, don't stop here. The next video is waiting for you, and it will take you deeper into this process of transformation. It will show you how to build an identity that no one can shake, no matter how loudly they try to pull you back into the noise. Watch it not because you feel obligated, but because you deserve to step into a version of yourself that no longer hides, no longer bends, and no longer apologizes for existing. Remember, the weak shout, the strong remain silent, and the wise choose exactly when to speak. And now, you are ready to become one of them.